Yeah, I'm doing well. I'm very cold. It's far too cold these days. I'd be lying to everyone if I said I wasn't sitting here with a heated blanket on my lap to keep keep myself warm. Good to see everyone in the chat. Yeah, it's good to see everyone here. How was that last session? I caught bits of it whilst I was prepping. Was it a good one with Dan?
It was, and I'm sure we've got a great one to follow with you here. Thank you for joining us.
Awesome. Well, hopefully we do. Hopefully we do. Let me pull my slides up then, and we can kick this off. Let me make sure we're all working. Awesome. So we should be able to see my screen now. Can we get in the chat box from you guys? Can we get a Y in the chat box if we can see my screen, just so I know that it's working? Fantastic. And see Helen's there, Debbie is there. Thank you. Oh, there's a million people. All right, that's enough Ys, people. That's enough Ys. We're there. Before we kick things off, I wanted to just say thank you to everyone here at PIN setting this up, from Katie, from Simon, from Becky, everyone who's set this up and invited me to speak today. It's a really cool event to be part of, and yeah, I'm really excited to be here and do that. But a bigger thank you than them, because there's people who are much more important than Katie, Simon, myself, and Becky and the rest of the team, and that's you guys who are at home or wherever you are around the world watching this. It's a Saturday, and I'm sure there initially were a lot better places to be than here, and you're investing your time to be here and hopefully to drive forward your property business. And I think that's, first of all, that's really cool. I just wanted to thank you guys for being a massive part of this. The reality is that we'd just be sitting here talking to no one if you guys weren't here. And on that note, I've got the chat open on the screen here, so feel free to ask questions as we go. I may pause from time to time and try and answer if you know. We'll do a bit of a Q&A at the end, or provide some commentary. I don't want to sit here and just talk to myself on the screen. That'll be, it's a bit boring for me. So yeah, feel free to chime in on the chat. So firstly, a bit about me. So my name is Alex Daley. First and foremost, I'm a property guy. I've been an investor since the age of 24, and I truly do live and breathe this stuff. I talk about property far too much, especially if you ask my friends. I think about it far too much. I watch far too many videos. I listen to far too many things and read far too many articles and post about it. It really is a massive part of my life, and the truth is I really do quite enjoy it. I built a portfolio up here in very sunny today, sunny Nottingham, but still we're holding on from the snow. I built a portfolio up here, largely around HMOs and buy-to-lets, mainly going down the BRRR route. Alongside that, I'm the editor of YPN Magazine, as we said. So YPN Magazine, for those of you who don't recognise me, then you might not have heard of what YPN Magazine is about. Maybe you do, maybe you haven't. So YPN Magazine is a magazine that's been out since 2008, when I was young. And essentially our job there is to provide a lot of value for people in order to help drive their property portfolios up. So we talk to the greats in the industry, from the Simons, and Dan's a regular contributor as well, and a lot of people here today are actually regular contributors. Essentially we're trying to share as much knowledge as we can to make sure that, John says, is there a better place to be than here? Absolutely not. YPN's the place that we're trying to give as much value as possible and learn from the wins, learn from the losses. And so that's what I do on a day-to-day basis, which means also that I have a massive data set. So not only do I do my own property investing myself and obviously pull from my experience from there, I also talk to a ton of people who are doing much bigger stuff than me and who are making much bigger mistakes and making much bigger wins than me. And so I kind of come here today talking both from my experience, but also from the experience of everyone else that's been part of that YPN community. Alongside that, I also coach investors one-to-one and try and help them get their first move in property investing. So I'm not going to be the biggest property investor here. I can guarantee that. There's going to be people here that are going to be talking, and probably people sitting in the audience today that are much further on in their careers, in their property careers than me. I'm going to be doing bigger deals, much cooler deals, much sexier deals, making a ton more money. What I often say for people is that I'm further on than some people and behind a lot of others. But what I have done is created a very simple business, very simple, well-executed business that's provided me with a very predictable income and has generated me financial freedom while still in my 20s. I'm just still in my 20s. I've got just under 6 months to still say that I'm 20s before I hit the big 3-0. So what does success mean to me? Well, there's no flashy cars here. That's not what I'm about, or it's just not what I do. Success is about time freedom for me. It's about time and location freedom. And the reason why I put this slide in here is because I think it's important for you to understand what I'm about. You're about to sit and listen to me. It's important you understand what I'm about. It's for me, I really value the freedom that property has given me. I take my Fridays off. I work the first kind of 1-2 hours, and then I go off trail running, or I go off walking, often in the Peak District or one of the National Trust places nearby me, Hardwick Hall, etc. I also spend a lot of time abroad, and that's been very, very enjoyable for me over the last few years, but also very important for me for a number one, for a different reason. So a lot of my family, and those of you who kind of come to the YPN webinars that I host, you'll know that a lot of my family live in Australia. So for me, I go over to Australia, which I got back from my last trip over there. I think I got back 2 weeks ago, and when you come back to 0-degree weather, I think it's much more enjoyable being there. But that's not the reason why I have always been going there. The reason why I have been going there is because most of my family live there. Now, my grandma unfortunately died 2 months ago, which was my last grandparent that was alive, and I was able to go out to Australia and spend time with her for 4 times in the last 13 months, and that's a reality that probably wouldn't be possible if it wasn't for property. And so I just wanted to talk about that and say that for me, that's what winning is. It's not about Ferrari. In fact, there's my little Italian sports car on the screen there. It's the little red Rocket, the little red Fiesta. It's not about being flashy. It's about the freedom that property that property provides you. So today's session, I sat down and thought, what on earth can we talk about here? There's probably going to be 1,000 people in the room today, with 1,500 registrations, and it's going to go up and down throughout the day. What on earth can we talk about? What can we cover that's going to be, that's going to be applicable to everyone? And the answer is not a lot. There's not going to be a lot that's going to be applicable to everyone. But what we can do is say that we're going to go back to basics. So there's no secret sauce today. If you're here today thinking that I'm going to give you a strategy, a new cutting edge strategy that simply says, okay, this is what you need to do, and you're going to be a millionaire in the next 3.5 weeks, it's not going to happen. What we're doing today is going to go back to basics. We're going to go back to what I believe are the new basics, the new basics in investing and property business moving forward. It's not the case for everyone, but hopefully you can pick something up. It's very likely that if you're already established property people, that we're going to cover a lot of things that you already know, and we're going to cover things that you're already doing, and I think that's absolutely great. There will be certain things that you're like, yeah, I'm already doing that, I already know that I'm doing that, and maybe it just reaffirms what you are doing. We're going to cover things that maybe you know but aren't doing, and you think, oh yeah, no, I do know that, and I know I should be doing that, and I now need to change that. And that's also fantastic. If you're a beginner, it's very different. There's going to be a lot of things that are going to hopefully help you shape your roadmap moving forward and help shape your business as you get going. The worst case scenario from this session, hopefully, and the whole rest of the day, is that you come away with just one value nugget. If that's from my session, great. If that's from Dan's session, great. If that's from Richie's session, great. Simon's session, great. Whatever. One value nugget is all we're really trying to do here as a minimum. Property is a world that if you mess it up, it's really, really costly. If you do really well, make a really good decision, it's really, really costly. One value nugget can swing all of this. And that's what today is about. It's about bulletproofing your portfolio and trying to provide a value nugget. It's about saying what I'm doing moving forward in 2026 and what other investors that I speak through the pages of the magazine, what they're doing to try and to try and shape their business moving forward. So a quick look at the chat. I can see some comments around about the cricket of my trip to Australia. So I was actually in Adelaide at the same time that the cricket was on there. So I did watch it on the TV, but not in person. So today's landscape. The reality is the property world is changing a hell of a lot. I'm not going to go into each of these changes. I'm not going to go into depth in each of these changes because there's people who are much more qualified to talk about tax than me. They're much better looking to talk about tax than me, and they're much more interested to talk about tax than I am. What we will say is that tax has changed a lot in the last 10 years. Licensing has changed a lot in the last few years. We've got HMO licenses cropping up left, right and centre. We've got selected licence cropping up left, right and centre. Where I invest in Nottingham, most of the city is covered by what is a selective licence now. And the reality is that this is all going in one direction, and that direction is general increase in legislation. Well, the Renters' Rights Act has been set, and it's been hyped as this thing that's going to change. It's going to change the game for a lot of people. I think it will make a big impact, but I don't think it's as bad as a lot of people were thinking. It's don't get caught up with the media headlines. What it is all directing into is that hobby landlords, their days are probably over. What we need to do now is to be professional. The government are basically sitting down and saying, we don't want hobby landlords here, we want professional landlords. We want to bring some standards into the sector, and I don't think that that's a bad thing, and I don't think you guys should think that's a bad thing. What it means is we must now be professional. We need to think professionally, we need to start our business professionally, we need to grow our business professionally, and we need to manage our business professionally. And hopefully today we'll cover a bit of that with just some simple practical advice, nothing more. This isn't going to be super sexy, so I just want to give that expectation there from the start. Before I really dive in, it's going to be caveat time. I think it's important to provide caveats when talking to people, because you guys are listening to what I'm saying, you're taking notes, and it's important to provide caveats. The most important thing is that we all realize that I am biased. I'm really, really biased. First of all, I'm biased that property is a great thing to be doing, but I'm also biased that the strategies that I implement are also a great thing to be doing. And that's not a bad thing at all. I think everyone should be biased. Darren before me, Richie later, they're all going to be biased, and that's fantastic because that's what that's what gives us the confidence that what we're doing. But I think it's important that we realise that what we're talking about is formed from our own experiences and the experience of people we talk with. That's not always the right thing. It's not always the right thing for you guys at home. So I would encourage you all to listen to everything I say and everything that everyone else says. I would encourage you to digest it, to challenge the ideas of it, and not take it as gospel at all. Go back, reflect on it all, put your own spin on it, steal from what you like, steal from the speakers you liked, and ignore the people that you think, actually, it's not applicable for me. And where this all comes down to, where I'm talking about with bias, is that a lot of what I'm going to talk about today is about really simple strategies within property. Sexy is really cool, but I unapologetically champion just really simple investing for a lot of you guys at home, and myself included. So I've spoken about the changing of the landscape, and I think it's important not just to talk about that, but also to bring some data to that. So really recently, the government have commissioned a survey, and they published this, I think 2 months ago. It was early December. So 1 month ago, it was early December, because I remember I was reading it at the airport. I was in Doha International Airport, and I was reading the survey. Now, it covered landlords of all sizes, from really small to really big. They basically asked them of what their experience is like in all aspects, from maintenance to house, and they're increasing rent, and literally everything. One of the things I want to pull for you today, which will provide some context on the landscape, is about what was happening when people were asked what their plans were for the next 2 years. Now, 42% of landlords said that they plan to keep their portfolio the same size. 31% said they plan to decrease their portfolio size. Only 7% of landlords said they wanted to increase their portfolio. And 20% said they hadn't made any plans yet. So of that 31% who said that they're going to decrease their portfolio, 16% of landlords said that they're going to sell all of their properties. It's a huge amount. So the graph we're looking at on screen here is basically talking about those 31% who said that they were decreasing their portfolio. And what we're saying is that the reason why people are leaving, the landlords are leaving, is not because of poor experience with tenants, which I would have thought it would have been. It's not about, financial reasons. It's not actually about the performance of their properties, perhaps. It's about legislation. It's about legislation changes, both past and future. And so with that, we can see very clearly that the main challenge that landlords have is going to be around legislation. That's what people are worried about. And because of that, people are exiting. Now, what what we're generally seeing with all of this is that it's becoming tougher and tougher to be a landlord, and landlords are responding by leaving. But what happens when landlord numbers go down? Well, demand is already really, really high anyway. We know this. If I were to go on my phone now and if I were to post on Open Rent and say, okay, here's a 2-bed property in Nottingham. It's going to be well priced, and it's going to be around about £950 per month, which is well priced for 2-bed in Nottingham. It's going to have nice photos, and I've done it relatively nicely. If I post that now, by the time the session is finished, I can guarantee by the time the session is finished, we have 5 applicants who'll be pretty strong applicants with that. And so demand's already super high. If there's less landlords, we're not building enough homes, that this basic economics, we know what's going to happen. Rents will continue to go up. And so what we have here is an interesting situation where the challenge that we're facing as landlords, as property investors, the challenge is also what is the opportunity, which is a really interesting position to be in. So why do I think that basic strategies are a good way to go? And why do I think that people are wrong to ignore basic strategies? Well, look, firstly, I'd say that other strategies will make you more money, and they'll be a hell of a lot sexier. They'll be much cooler to tell your friends about when you have your dinner parties. When you're out for dinner and talking to your friends, it's much better to tell them about how you've developed it, and you've taken an old wreck of a building and you've turned it into something that's amazing and sold it for a massive profit. That's a much better thing to say. It's even cooler if you wanted to say that you found a field and put on 3 properties on that and named it after your partner's, named it after your partner's name, and that's just always going to be a much cooler thing than talking about with buy-to-lets or B-triple-R. But people can get caught up in what the big strategies look like. You can get caught up in the cool strategies, which again do work, but for a lot of people, I just don't believe they're the best way to go. And on the flip side, buy-to-lets, B-triple-R, the less cool strategy, the stuff that people will, scream less about on Instagram, but they still really work. And I think that it's really interesting that I'm one of the only people in the kind of property content sphere who continue to champion really, really simple strategy. And the reality is it still works, but you need to execute it really, really well. But why do I think it works, and why do I think that you guys should really consider at home, you should really consider the basic strategy rather than going down this complex route? And the number one thing is ease. Now, most people are really, really busy. That's why this is on a Saturday and it's not on a Monday. It's because most people are really busy. And, you work a 9 to 5, which actually probably looks more like an 8:30 to a 6:30, especially by the time you've had an in-commute. You have a family, you've got friends, maybe you train, and you need to sleep because that's also quite important. How on earth can you then push for a really complex strategy off the back of doing all of that? And this isn't just my feelings on it, this because these are my feelings, but this isn't just my feelings. I see time after time with talking to people within the magazine. I've been in the beginner section of the magazine for a very long time now, writing and producing content. What I very, very, very often see is people coming to me talking about their plans, talking about how they're going to do X strategy or Y strategy and what they're going to be doing. They go away. And they continue to do this stuff, and we check back in within 6, 9, 12 months, and very consistently the same story has occurred. They're exactly the same position as they were before. And I don't think that's a coincidence that the people that are coming over with these really complex strategies are in exactly the same position as they were before. But those people who come with basic strategies that have a very clear, I'm just going to buy a rundown property, I'm going to do it up, I'm going to rent it out, I'm going to keep doing that. They've usually executed, they've usually started. Now, that doesn't mean they need to stay in that strategy forever. They can do that, but they can build momentum and then move on. And I wonder if anyone at home that resonates with them, that they've thought about doing these really complex strategies, and they've thought about doing this for the last 3 months, they've thought about doing it for the last 6 months, the last 12 months, the last 18 months, and they're still in the same position. It's not a bad thing. Don't worry about that. You're in the same position as most people. I can see people in the chat. I'm not going to read out names, but I can see people in the chat saying that that resonates with them. Because there's a ton of people in the property world that do that, because we learn all about this sexy stuff. But execution is the number one thing. It's much easier to go to this complex strategy when you've got a portfolio behind you. You can sell this portfolio, you can refinance this portfolio, you can keep it and just use it to churn on to the next thing. Build momentum early and take the early wins, the early predictable wins. So how do we actually change, and how do we make sure that we make buy-to-lets work? So I've come over here and I've said buy-to-lets and B-triple R are the best way to go for a lot of people. For a lot of people, they're not going to be. Go off and do the cooler stuff, fine. But for a good chunk of people, the really basic things are going to be the best way. But not every property is going to do that, and not every strategy within that is going to work. So how do we actually make this work? The first thing is having the overarching principle is viewing this as a business. First and foremost, this is your business. I think gone are the days where we talk about something being, property being just a thing you have on the side that maybe bumps up your pension, or it's just, on the side, it's a little side thing that keeps churning away. Those old views, I think, are dangerous. What it is now is about upping your game. It's about viewing this very purely as a business, just like you would if you started a marketing agency, or just like you would if you started a new restaurant. You would be viewing it as a business, not an investment. It's about upping your game. It's about creating systems, processes. It's about viewing tenants as customers, not as people who live in these houses. It's about being ultra selective about your growth. It's about being selective about how you grow and when you grow. So the first principle that I want to talk about, and again, I want to come back to, there is nothing here that's going to be super new to anyone, but I want to reinforce the basics, the new basics. The first principle is always buying to add value. Now, what we've seen with legislation, what we continue to see, is that margins will continue to get squeezed within this sector. The profit margins will get squeezed. We are forced to have to work a lot harder to see returns that we want. Turnkey is getting to a point where for most properties it doesn't really work. The only way to make buy-to-lets work is to decrease the initial money that's left into the deal. So we're forced now to come in here and add value. Now, this isn't something that's just sprung up overnight. This is something that if we talk to anyone in this magazine, I can guarantee the very common theme with everyone is they buy to add value. They buy and whether that's straight away or whether that's over the next few years, they will add value to their property. It means that they can leave less money in the deal and they can move on. Now, we've all heard this concept. This isn't going to be new to many people. And we know about no money left in. We know that is the gold standard when it comes to property investing. I'm going to, again, be the guy that's going to come in and say, you don't need to look for no money left in every deal. It is the gold standard, but it's not as common as people think. Now, one of the things, again, talking to a lot of people throughout the magazine, where you get to is that people will often talk about this and say, oh, well, I'm not all money out on this. I'm not all money out on this. I can't make a move on this. And I sit there thinking, Christ, you're getting a house for $5,000 left in. What's not to like about that? I'd be taking that $5,000 left in. You don't need to chase the extreme returns with it. And again, it comes back to what my investing is about. My investing is about not chasing the unicorn deals, but consistency and simplicity. The other real massive benefit for buying and adding value, adding equity, is that this will usually result in a renovation. It's usually resulting in a big renovation that usually covers the kitchen, it usually covers, the bathroom, all of these kind of these big things that increase the value. But what they also do, they increase the value and they also decrease maintenance over time. So you front load a hell of a lot of your maintenance, and you mean that on an ongoing basis, your profit margins just look better. And also, almost more importantly, hassle is a hell of a lot less. Hassle for you, hassle for your managing agent, hassle for your tenants. You're doing a lot of the work up front, raising the value, repeating your process, and ensuring that it's a smooth investment that you can just keep churning out. One of the massive things I think that we need to really, really focus on is going to be property selection. Now, we need to be absolutely ruthless when it comes to property selection. I often have a joke in the magazine that there was a day only a couple of years ago where interest rates were just so low that, and I'm sure you guys remember this, interest rates being so low that you could pretty much go out into the street there. I could go out into Nottingham town centre, take a golf ball, take a driver, take a massive swing. If you're anything like me, when you play golf, the ball, when you go out to get a driver at least, it goes up, it goes far to the right, and it goes somewhere off in that direction. You could pretty much do that in Nottingham, in any other city, wherever the ball lands, wherever the ball whichever property the ball lands on or in, you can buy that property and make a pretty good amount of money off the back of it. The reality is that those glory days are over. We can't see that anymore. Interest rates are not the 1-2% as they were. People who are buying those properties then, and I'm sure there's people in the room here, people who are buying those properties then, have then got to a point where now they refinance once, they've refinanced twice, and they think, Christ, these things don't actually work. That I'm not making the money that I need to be making because I stress tested it at 4% interest because my interest was 2%. I think one of the things that I would always encourage all investors to do when it comes to buy-to-lets is stress test it at 8.5%. I've always stress tested between 8 and 8.5%. If it works then, if it washes its face then, if it stacks up then that's where you can consider making a move on it. And so your job now is to get super specific. Your job as an investor is to get super specific and say, okay, I'm only buying properties that meet my criteria. Who here at home has their criteria written down? They understand exactly what that means. I buy these properties here. I am happy to leave this amount of money in here, and this is what I want to see within a deal. And I think there's not a lot of people who actually have that all laid out. We need then to be super prepared to have offers rejected. We need to be prepared to say, okay, this property only works for me at 120 grand. Let's at 140, but it only works for me at 120 grand. And so I'm going to have to put that offer in and be prepared to get rejected a hell of a lot. But again, we buy with the numbers, we don't buy with the emotions. That said, I do think it's important to say, don't pass on a deal for the sake of £1,000. It's a good deal and it's £1,000 over. Just swallow it up. It's not that big of a deal. You'll make that up. You'll make that up just getting the deal, get a deal slightly and faster. But what it does mean is don't sink money into deals that really just were never deals. This slide here, the tenant selection, I think is really, really important, and for a lot of people, this is going to be the bit that's going to get, that will hopefully get you thinking. It's something that certainly got me thinking. Now, within days of the Renters' Rights Bill becoming an act, I was speaking with landlords who were previously in the camp of, I would give this tenant a chance. They don't quite fit my criteria, but I would give them a chance. And now they're simply saying that they can't afford to take that risk. We're moving into a space where bad tenants equals the worst case scenario. That's the worst thing we can have. There's a really famous quote from this really, really wise man, Alex Daley, I believe his name is, who says that void periods are more expensive than slightly less rent, and bad tenants are more expensive than everything else. Say that again. Void periods are more expensive than slightly less rent, and bad tenants are more expensive than everything. And what I mean by that is that I'm simply not prepared to chase an extra £25 a month to have a tenant that's going to be higher on the risk profile. It's a much better play to lower the price of the property when you're advertising it. Lower the price rather than lowering your standards. Went very Bristolian then. Lowering your standards. I am from Bristol. I live in Nottingham. I'm from Bristol originally. It creeps in every so often. I notice a few words, and it's like that. I want to say that again because I think that's really important. Lower your price before you lower your standards. The worst case scenario is leaving money into the deal. Now, what that means then comes down is what is our job? Our job is to attract the best tenants. Our job is to attract the grade A tenants. So we need to look at that straight from the start, straight from what we're buying, from how we spec it up, from how we advertise it. I personally have a client avatar, a very specific client avatar that I have always made my decisions based around, and I'm going to share this client. And this, if anything, if there's any secret sauce throughout this whole presentation, this next 2 minutes is my secret sauce. So stop messaging in the chat. Stop, fiddling your phone. Stop scrolling through Instagram saying, "God, this guy's boring." This next kind of 2 minutes is going to be my version of secret sauce. This is the exact client that I will market to and that I will build my product based around. I think it's important to mention I am building this product around this. I'm not saying that I am only selecting these people because there's a legal element there that I do need to clarify. I'm not saying that other people don't get a chance. I'm simply saying that I will design my product based around this. So So my client avatar goes against what a lot of other people are talking about. The traditional tenant avatar has been, okay, I want someone who's going to stay in there for the long term, look after my property, and be there for a long term. And that's fantastic, and it can work a lot of the time. For me, I really like, and I build my product around young couples who are usually in their first or second property living together. They have two stable jobs usually. They generally have two stable jobs, and they are well within their affordability means. So if my rent is $950 on a property, they could really comfortably afford $1,500. Now that's really, really key. Really, really key for a few reasons. The most important reason there, why that's really, really key, is that they have made a conscious decision to say, we want to save really, really aggressively. We want to save really aggressively for one reason. And that one reason is they only want to stay here for 3 to 5 years. Now, my ideal client type now, the client that I build the product around, is staying for 3 to 5 years because as a couple together, at the end of that process, they are looking to buy their first home. Now, why is that really, really important? Why do I view that as my ideal client who I am building this product for? And the reason is really simple. Bad tenants are the worst case scenario, and whilst I can do all I can do, all I can do myself to keep my tenants on track, there is someone much bigger, much badder than me that can help them keep on track, and that's the bank. The bank in the future, who they're going to eventually go to and say, yeah, no, we want to take out this mortgage. They know, the tenants know, they're going to look through their credit file, they're going to look through and see if there's any CCJs or anything like that. And so they're being held accountable by someone much bigger, much badder, much scarier than little old me. And so the last thing that these tenants are going to want to do is piss about when it comes to paying rent, because they know that they need to tick off all of their rent schedule in order to make sure they're in the right position to go to the bank, cap in hand, and say, can I have some money, please? And so I essentially get in a position where if I can encourage that person to come into this property and market all around there, I know that I've got 3 to 5 years of hopefully, just about everything I can, a good tenant, and they're going to leave there. I'm going to be able to refresh the property with a bit of lick of paint, some new carpet, bang up to new market rent, get more money for my property, and I've also moved someone on who's going to move into a nice property themselves. And for me, that's always served as a really core principle as part of my investing. Now, I've generally gone quite well. I have a couple of HMOs, and this is completely separate to the HMOs. This is about the single let. So I've generally done very well with that. I can see the chat is blowing up, absolutely blowing up. People saying that this is this is really helpful. I almost regret telling you, because now this is going to be this is going to be a market that we're all fighting for. But no, the market is big enough. The market is big enough there. And so I've generally done really well from that. The only time where I haven't done well, the only kind of bad experience I've had with tenants is when I haven't gone with this strategy. I got an agent in, they gave me a list of people and said, pick one. And I said, okay, this lot. And they were two girls that squabbled, and I somehow turned into what was, I don't know, like a social worker at this point. They squabbled all the time, and I was basically dad to them for years before one of them moved out, the other one moved the boyfriend in, and it all went quite badly. So the only time I've gone away from this model, that's happened. Now, of course, I'm not saying that that's going to happen every single time. For me, I sit there and think, I'm probably just going to stick with this. Now, of course, all of this is super generalized. You're going to have people who are career tenants, going to stay in, they're going to be tenants forever, that don't aspire to buy their own property, and they're still going to be really good tenants. You're going to have those, and you're going to have tenants who fit this mold and then still piss about and are actually quite crap tenants. This is a generalization, but we're just playing the odds game, and we're trying to play the odds as well as we can. So the last few bits are going to be around raising rents and inspection. So everything I've spoken about it is about margins being squeezed, and that they're, I look at my phone bill. EE message me every few months saying, no, don't forget that in April that's going up. My electricity continues to be more, my Wi-Fi continues to be more, BT somehow is just increasing that left, right and centre. My Aldi bill, I used to spend 35 quid now, then it used to be like, oh gosh, 35 quid. Well, it's 50 quid. I have no idea where all of this is going. The reality is life is getting more and more expensive, and the Renters' Rights Act will have a very real financial cost. Now, we don't know what that's going to be. I'm sure there's some modelling out there, but there's going to be a very real financial cost for Renters' Rights Act. I would love to be in a position as a landlord to keep rents as they are, or even decrease them if even decrease them if as I pull money out, or whatever that looks like. It's just sadly not a reality. So my strategy with rent rising is that I will keep my rent within touching distance of market rent, but I will always reward good tenants. And again, this is something that I've spoken with other investors. This isn't just from my data set. There's other investors talking about that we need to increase regularly. Again, so it's also not a massive jump. We need to increase regularly, but we also need to keep it within touching distance of market rent, but reward good tenants. And again, I bring you back to that really famous quote from that incredibly good-looking, awfully charming, very talented, very eloquent philosopher, I think he was, Alex Daley, who said that void periods are more expensive than slightly less rent, and bad tenants are more expensive than everything. So there is no play to push tenants out, because pushing tenants out, having a void period, having a gap where I'm not getting 950 or not getting 1,000 or not getting 1,200 is actually going to be a hell of a lot more expensive than the increase in rent. There's no point chasing an extra 50 quid rent if it means that I'm going to lose £1,200 for 2 months. Like that math doesn't add up. And I think that's a gap many people fall into, where they'll chase the little bits of increases and not realise that if they do force a tenant out, it doesn't add up at all. But with that, we have to remember that I've previously said the tenants that I am looking for and the tenants that I market this around. And when I talk about market this around, I will literally highlight, I'll go down this demographic. Okay, so which amenities locally are these demographic going to be interested in? Design choices, etc., etc. They also have that affordability room that I've spoken about. And I think that's really, really important. They've got that affordability room that I've spoken about. And I will set that expectation on the day of the viewing. Always set that expectation that I do review rents, annually. May mean they go up, may mean they don't. Set that expectation early. And the last thing is going to be around about controlling the controllables when it comes to inspections. Now, we need to reframe the idea of inspections from something that's going to be checking on how the tenant is living. It's not about, are they scrubbing their kitchen? Because a tenant who's got OCD and cleans their kitchen 4 times a day is fantastic for that. But if there's a slipped tile on your property, it just doesn't mean anything. So we need to reframe what inspections are. And inspections are your opportunity to go to a property regularly and ensure that maintenance issues are being caught on. Because the reality is that a tenant that has a leaky downpipe or a leaky drain is not going to report that to you, unless the one situation is that the leaky drain is right above their door opening, and every time they open their door, it's dropping their head. That's the only time they're going to report that to you. And can I really expect these young couples to be doing inspections, checking on the condition? Probably not. And that's something that I've really neglected myself, and it's something that me talking here is also holding myself accountable, that when you actually read your insurance documents, a lot of them say you need to inspect your property every 3 or 6 months. And that's not for any odd reason. The reason for that is because if you keep on top of it, these maintenance issues, they don't go away. They don't get better over time. They either stay the same or they get worse. And catching these things early will help to control what will be, already shrinking profit margins. As far as the main content, that's what I want to cover. Again, I set the expectations saying that there were going to be absolutely no secret sauce here. I don't want to come here and tell you how to be a billionaire within 3 minutes, because I don't know how to be, and I probably would be if I did know how to be. What I do know how to do is to build a really predictable business, a really predictable, stable business that allows people to do what they want. Our offering to everyone is here on the screen today. So I've spoken about YPN magazine. I'm not going to give a pitch for it because hopefully you guys know it, and if you don't, I'm sure people in the chat are going to tell you how cool YPN is. But you can see for yourself. Don't take my money, don't take my word for it. See for yourself. Scan the QR code on the page. It's going to take you through to a website where you can sign up. Now, this is a free trial. We don't want to take any money from your account. It's a completely free trial. All you need to do at the end of it is cancel that. What you will get is you'll get one of these in the post, a physical copy, 84 pages, really cool. You'll also get access to a back catalogue of all our other magazines. So I think the back catalogue goes back 5 years or so. Kiri says, can we have a link, please? I think there's a link just above. It's put in by Pippa, but we'll put that in it again so you've got that. Yes, you're going to get access to the back catalogue. All you need to do there is sit down, have a quick scan for all of you, spend a few hours, go through that and learn a bunch of stuff. I really encourage you guys to do that. And yeah, webinars, everything you've got, everything you need to do well, it's going to be on there. Cool. That is me done, Katie. How do we do on time? I don't actually know what time I was meant to finish. How do we do on time?
Amazing. We've got a couple of minutes, so I just thought I'd ask you a couple of the top questions.
Fantastic. I just wanted to thank everyone before we do that. I just wanted to thank everyone for being really good sports in the chat and some nice encouragement on there. I was having a look at my my Garmin before I came on here. My Garmin has a stress level, and my stress level's out. It's out of 100. I was at 92 out of 100 before I came on here. Right now, no word of a lie. I don't know if you guys can see this. Probably not. I'm at 9. So that's all. Everyone's helping that. I'm at 9. We're resting the heart rate's down. We're looking good. You guys have all been very, very kind to me, and I really appreciate it. Katie, over to you.
Amazing. So, Grace has asked, do you manage your portfolio yourself or do you work with agents?
That's a really good question, and this is something that's changing as we go through. So I have traditionally managed my whole portfolio. It's been I quite enjoy doing it, and that's why I've always done that. The reality is that as things change, as the sector gets professionalised, I'm looking for good agents that they can. Sorry, someone's asking to scan the QR code. I'm just going to put it back there. I'm looking for good agents that they're taking my property. So I've shipped over my HMOs now to agents, and they need to be good agents. And when I talk about saying that, void periods and tenants and that lot, and saying that one's more important than the other, or one's more damaging than the other, a bad agent is really, really bad. So if I find good agents, yes, my HMO's been shipped over, and I will eventually move over my single lets on the basis of they need to be really, really good at what they do. Because we're still, as the owners, we're still exposed to an agent's incompetence.
Amazing. Unfortunately, that's all we've got time for today. But Alex did share his contact details. I'm sure he is available on social media as well. Thank you so much for joining us today. Very insightful and very grounding as well. So thank you.
Absolutely. Awesome, guys. Well, yeah, thank you for your time. My email is there. I'll also put it in the chat after this. But yeah, sorry, I obviously ran over. I blame all of you guys. You guys were talking too much, and I'm going to leave it. Kevin is a guy who we've previously done a lot of stuff with in both the magazine and webinars. So you're going to be in fantastic hands there. I'm going to sign off and say, have a good rest of your day, guys.
Amazing. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, Alex.
Thank you.
So, guys, that was Alex.